probably going to head to the pub after this. It's still only 4 o'clock here.
Hello and welcome to the Rugby Chat episode 55. And we're going to talk about women's contracts tonight, amongst other things. But hi, I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, your best place for rugby predictions and opinion. And joining me this evening is Herman. How are you doing, sir?
I'm doing fine, Paul. Good to see you too. Straight from the pub.
Yes,
Straight
exactly.
from the pub.
So for those of you that don't know, Herman and, well, in fact, everybody who's on here won't know, is that Herman and Arsene have been talking about rugby for the last 45 minutes, unrecorded. And I've been down the pub having a few beers. So for the past 3 odd hours. So Herman, where do you want to start? Because I have a number of things to talk about, but having kept you for 45 minutes, I feel you should be allowed to choose where we start off this evening.
Well, I guess you already covered it yesterday, but should we just give an extra thought for what happened this last weekend? Because it was pretty extraordinary.
It was extraordinary, and you weren't there. Now, remember, we do have a whole hour of All Blacks talk tomorrow night. So
yeah. So we're going to save a lot. But I want to say one thing. One thing is, like, this weekend it felt like we traveled in a time machine backwards, because here comes Springboks and win in New Zealand, and the Blues wins in Christchurch. That was not. That's proper time traveling, isn't it?
Well, absolutely. And we're talking about Auckland beating Canterbury, which has not happened especially in Canterbury, has not happened for many a year.
11 years, and Springboks is 9 years since they won.
Oh, dearie me. So it has been a long time.
But I know I can start on this. I know where to start now. I can get your points to it too, because I've been quite active in some internet forums and discussing and reading comments after the game. And I have to give a huge shout out to most Kiwi fans, how the way they handled this defeat against the Springboks. They have been, 90% have been pure class, like really gracious, applauding the Springboks and just say, well played, you earned that win. And it's all the way from Steve Hansen all the way down to some internet trolls almost, and like even there are a few who complain about, but Nigel Owens didn't pick up that offside call in the last minute, hey, that's what you get. But there have been a very small minority who have been going on about that.
Yeah, no. So basically, the New Zealand Herald decided we needed some clicks because we're feeling a bit poor. We need some beer money.
Yeah.
So we'll complain about a Nigel Owens call at the end there. Whereas if I'd actually been following through Twitter, I found it difficult to actually follow Twitter during the game, because the number of people complaining that Nigel Owens was just too New Zealand centric during the game, and then to have this come out of the New Zealand Herald after the game that it was kind of against the All Blacks. You're like, come on, both sides complaining about the ref and moaning about the ref. Please, can we just give it a rest? Because and as you say, the majority of New Zealand fans have been very gracious, and it's easy to be gracious when you only lose once every 2 years or once every year. To be fair, but it is nice, yes, that's been the majority of the reaction has been that kind of thing. Now, I'll be honest, I took some flack on Twitter because after 5 minutes, the All Blacks scored, and so I put a tweet out saying that basically the All Blacks have scored in 5 minutes. Should we just basically go home? The game's already over. And that was not so much the kind of like arrogance New Zealand. It's just kind of like, oh my word, I've seen this game so many times. I don't want to see this game again. And thankfully, I didn't get to see it. I got to see a very good test match. But yes, I got a lot of tweets going, oh, this tweet didn't age well. And I went, no, it didn't. Isn't it fantastic? And they're like, wow. Yeah. Wow. How good of you to say so. It's like, well, absolutely. This wasn't from an arrogant point of view. This was from a kind of like, I've had enough of seeing this point of view. I'd like to see a real game. And it was great. Yeah. We got a real game.
Oh, I got to share something with you. Got some notes.
Got some notes? Oh dear. I didn't get any notes because I was down the pub.
about this game. So taking notes while watching because my plans, my notes from the first half. So like it's short one. It's like, oh, I win this. Take the mark. But as likely as a lot of jackpots. Only I'm so wrong, all over.
No.
And yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, I put another tweet out on 20 minutes going, look, the All Blacks, the Springboks haven't been in the All Blacks 22 at all. This is going to be a one-sided game. And again, that didn't age very well, thankfully.
And when there was I think it was Eben Etzebeth who also went from Aaron Smith pretty early. So I thought, that's how we're going to do South Africa. We're going to try to take Aaron Smith out, so that. And then the first two tries for New Zealand, I said, what a spine breaker. He from South Africa, he just over. But I also give props to Owen. He says he nails the scrum. He actually nailed the scrum from the first scrum, actually, Nigel Owens. You got to give props to him for that instead of complaining about it. And then when things really, I was right. I think around the 20-minute mark was the onside commentator, Ian Smith from New Zealand television. He was he was starting to petty for South Africa. Oh, South Africa, they better start to get something. They need to score soon, with 57-0 last year. Now it's 69-0. I mean, South Africa just needs something here, I felt here we go, New Zealand. I mean, that's what we're resorting to, petty for South Africa. But actually, within 20 seconds after Ian Smith, after he said that, was actually they scored a try, South Africa, a great try, Jante's first try. And then, and then it comes closer to the halftime. I just have WF. Everyone know what that is. What is happening? And then the script, big. And then I just after South Africa scored that first try in the second half, intercept try after just 1.5 minutes, I just realized, oh no, I'm not going to do any notes here. I'm going to watch this game because I think we have a classic on our hands. It was barman, some vodka shots over to me, and we got ourselves a game here. And we did. It was also a funny comment from Smitty. I mean, it was around minute 60 or something like that. He said, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I actually think it's score the next try. Otherwise, this game is over. Which is something that's very rare to hear on New Zealand television, that we play, the All Blacks better score now. Otherwise, this can get ugly.
No, very true. But you mentioned a couple of things there. One is that we, obviously, the intercept try. Before that, we had Geordie Barrett throwing a interesting, I'll say, quick line out that went all pear-shaped. And also we had Beauden Barrett missing a whole bunch of kicks. And this goes back to something that we saw from the Ronan O'Gara's inauguration into the World Rugby Hall of Fame. He was saying, look, New Zealand, there's nothing mystical. There's nothing special. They're just very good. And if you get everything right and they get something wrong, you can beat them. Will you beat them on a consistent basis? Possibly not, because they do get a lot of things right. And that's basically what we saw was on the weekend. Was the All Blacks got a few things wrong. South Africa got a lot of things right. And that's the result we ended up with. And even in that situation, it still could have been an All Blacks win if they'd done a drop goal, if they'd scored at the death. So even with all those things going right for South Africa and all those things going wrong for New Zealand, it was still a tight game, and it was a very good game. Yes, it was. But an interesting little fact I saw, if you compare, because there are a lot of people who want to claim that this is the best All Blacks team ever. I mean, Chris Roth in New Zealand Herald said there's no point even playing the World Cup. Let's just hand out the trophy already now. But if you look at the stats, because for me, the best All Blacks team ever was the one who played the World Cup final 2015. That was the best All Blacks team. And you see, in that World Cup cycle that led up to the World Cup 2015, the All Blacks lost 4 games. This team has already lost 4 games, and they have a couple of pretty tough games still to play before they go to the World Cup.
So I think until this team blow everyone off the park in the World Cup, I think we all should shut up about this being the best All Blacks team ever, because no, they are not. Not yet.
No, they're not. And I'm going to go back to a video that was put out by the End Games. The End Game.
Yeah, Henry's. Yeah, I saw that too.
Yeah, Henry's video. So he's, and by the way, he's done a video with me, an interview of me. So yeah, hey, I'm going to shine in glory. Someone interviewed me. Well, I must be famous.
Yeah. Lots of girls in the pub hooking up with you now. Oh, Paul, hey.
So anyway, but yeah, he did a video where he talked about the fact that the All Blacks are a process-orientated team rather than a situation-orientated team, which I found interesting. And yeah, they play the same way the whole time, whatever's happening, and it normally works. But in this situation, it didn't. And as I said last night, I got to see a closed training session by the All Blacks prior to the third Lions test last year, and they didn't do any training around drop kicks or drop goals. And yeah, I don't think they have that necessarily in their armory. Now, is that a weakness? Yes. Is it a weakness that will tell normally? No. But it's interesting that that set routine for a drop goal doesn't appear to be in their armory. I know TJ Perenara has said that yes, that call came out and that he made the decision that a 2-on-4, 4-on-2, not 2-on-4, the 4-on-2 was the better option than the drop goal. I'm not entirely convinced by that, but yeah, I don't think that basically a drop goal is really within the All Blacks armory. Do they need it? On the whole, no. Once every 3 years. Now, if it's a World Cup final, then that'll tell. But I don't think it's generally something they just don't need.
But another thing, if you're going to mention the Lions tour, that's something that's never ever mentioned by New Zealand commentators on internet or journalists in their articles, is about, of course, the Lions tour last year, and the penalty was not to be in the end. That could have won the series for All Blacks. A lot of people saying that it was a foregone conclusion, but they should have won the series. But I think we all know there's a pretty big chance that Bowden Barron would have missed that kick too, because he is not good when the pressure is on.
No, he's not. He's not the best goal kicker in the world by a country mile.
In those last two kicks in Springboks, they are pretty much not right in front, but very makeable.
Oh yeah, no, there was he had a bit of a shocker. And as I said last night to Ashwin, he couldn't hit the side of a barn door. Yeah, fine. Hit the side of the barn. He could hit the post, but yeah, no, he should have made way more of those kicks. It was a very poor performance by him, kicking. I mean, you got either Geordie Barrett or Damon McKenzie on the pitch who both can kick. It's questionable as to why the All Blacks management persist on saying that he will be the kicker. For example, the Wallabies did not have their number 10 kicking at the weekend. Their number 12 kicked for them, as an example. You don't have to, or actually they're 12 and they're 13. You don't have to have your 10 as the kicker. It's not law.
No.
And actually, the weekend I got to have a quick chat with a lady called Sophie Fisher, who plays for North Harbour in the Farah Palmer Cup, and she has number 5 on her back, and she kicks. So it was interesting having a chat with a lock kicking player, which was an interesting chat at the weekend.
I mean, probably one of the most famous kicks ever against New Zealand was kicked by a lock too. You remember back in 2000 or 2001?
What, by nobody?
Yeah. Yeah, because nobody's perfect. John Eales.
Yeah, John Eales.
Broke the hearts and everyone in Wellington. But I got to ask you before we move on from this game, what players and what in the South African game stood out for you? What did you take? What are your takeaways, like your best South African players, and what did you really like about their performance?
I say I watched this one in the pub after over a few beers. I didn't take many notes, but the error count by New Zealand was appalling. I thought the pressure by New Zealand by South Africa it was very good on defence. See, it's got to be the defensive effort by South Africa. Was it 230 odd or 250 odd tackles?
Yeah, 230 tackles.
Is nuts. That's just crazy. Dante proved again what wonderful feet he's got. I loved his try where he danced around some players. That was, I think it was his second try. Was glorious.
Yeah.
So
he's special, that boy, Giantis. He looks. I've been hyping about him for like pretty much all season, and I'm happy I did because he's come through for me big time. I pretty much named him Brian Abana 2.0 the first time I saw him, and he looks every bit like Brian. I mean, he's still very raw. I mean, you can see him making some pretty shocking decisions sometimes in his position and so on. He's all over the place. But still, with that in mind, you scored 2 tries away against New Zealand. And let's not forget, you made 2 huge defensive plays in the last 5 minutes. So he's the one knocking the ball out of Mackenzie's hand in the last play. And he's catching Mackenzie on the right wing one time when Mackenzie looks for all the money in the world. Mackenzie's in, but this boy is a base, obviously faster than Mackenzie. That's pretty telling, but we know that now. But I'm with you. He looks special. He looks very special, Giantis.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's just hope he doesn't get overcoached. As you say, he has rawness about him, but let's keep the specialness as we improve his play rather than try and overcoach him into becoming a perfectly positioned winger who loses his footwork and loses speed, loses what makes him magical.
Yeah.
That's my only caution I have.
All right now. What else in African play do you like? What do you think? What was it like? If you were holding the speak for the South African team after the game, what would you tell them if you did good, boys?
It's got to be that is the belief. In all honesty, they believed they could win, which you quite often don't get against the All Blacks. A lot of teams go in knowing that they've actually lost before they even start playing, really. And this team could have very easily have folded and lost. I mean, having under that amount of pressure, it was that defensive effort from them, and they're going to have. And after what was a pretty poor loss to the Pumas, to turn up and do that shows that we've got there's I don't know. There's something seriously. There's so up and down at the moment. I'm not sure. You don't know who you're going to get next weekend or the weekend after next, because you've got weekend off. When they play the Wallabies in South Africa, which team are we going to see? We're going to see the team that played away in Argentina, or we're going to see the team that played away in New Zealand? Because if they play like that against Australia are just not going to score any points. And South Africa might not score a lot, but they'll score enough because Australia won't score anything against them, against that kind of defensive effort. So there's, as you say, there's a lot still to be done around this team, because to only have 25% possession and territory, put themselves under that much pressure for that long, they're going to crack most times. So number one is, don't get carried away with yourselves, good boys. There's a lot of work to do, but let's enjoy this victory, because it was a very good victory.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because there are a fair few players going into the next World Cup who knows what it feels like to beat the All Blacks now. There's a lot of belief around there, and we actually think we try to go completely opposite what Chris Roth said, that this is a foregone conclusion. I'm pretty sure there are a lot of players out there who will tell, oh, no, Chris Roth, we know how to beat these All Blacks. We know it can be done.
Not necessarily we know how to, but we know we can do.
Yeah.
Yeah. I still think. I still think there are very few people who go into an All Blacks game. In fact, I don't think there's anyone who goes into an All Blacks game going, we should win this. It's more of, as long as we do what we can do, we're with a good shout. It's not. Whereas if you go back to, like, say, the 2003 England team, there was a team that would go into an All Blacks game going, if we do what we do properly, we should win this.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas most teams, whereas the teams now that go into this one, South Africa, Ireland, probably the only two, to be honest, who go into one of these games and go, if we play to how we play, we could win this. Not we should, but we could. England after last year, no, not that I would have said the England from 2 years ago would be in a similar boat of that, but they've fallen away so much. They're not there, and it's not there with the Wallabies.
No. But I mean, Wallabies is a curious one, because still I think I'm leaning more and more toward the major issue for the Wallabies and Australian Super Rugby teams is coaching. They just don't have good enough coaching. They were so much stupid rugby all over Australia. That's my quick takeaway from it. What is lacking in Australian rugby?
Yeah, and my new theory around why is New Zealand so good is around coaching.
I agree with it.
They have. Now, that's one thing I'm not sure I've told you. I think it's one I told Archie, but not yourself. The structure that New Zealand has with their Super Rugby and their Mitre 10 Cup sides is there are 14 Mitre 10 Cup sides and there are 5 Super Rugby sides, and Auckland Mitre 10 Cup time, for example, has players in all 5 Super Rugby franchises. Now, that's the exception rather than the rule, but most teams will have players from at least 3, if not Super Rugby franchises, which means that everything they've learnt in the last season gets brought down and shared into this in their Mitre 10 Cup team. And then when they go back to the Super Rugby side next season, basically none of the Super Rugby sides have any secrets anymore because they've all been shared. And so the coaches have to reinvent what they do all over again to win, because otherwise their ideas are gone. And so basically what you see is, and the same applies to the Mitre 10 Cup teams, any idea they have that's good gets taken to Super Rugby, comes back down and shared amongst all the Mitre 10 Cup sides. So you've got a total sharing of basically you lose your IP or your intellectual property every year, and you have to rethink it. No other country in the world has that level of sharing of information, even even if it is involuntarily rather than voluntarily, because in all of Europe you stick in your same club for 12 months. In New Zealand, in Australia and South Africa, sure, they have the NRC and the Currie Cup, but they don't mix the players in the same way. Those sides are much more tied to the Super Rugby franchises. And so, in New Zealand, we have this unique situation where all of their coaching intellectual property gets shared around, and the coaches have to be really innovative to rethink their plan every year, which means that the coaching is just much better.
Yeah, totally agree, Paul. Totally agree.
So there you go. And
what do you want to talk about today? What do we want
to talk about today? Because we're only halfway through the show. Well, the title I put out there is women's contracts. So we should talk about that because that has got to be big. That's massive news out of England. The RFU have given out 28 contracts to 15 players on the women's side. And the important thing here is, whilst they are for a year, they get renewed every year, and they're ad infinitum. They're not just for a 2-year cycle, which they were last time. These are ongoing, which is fantastic news.
Yeah, it is. It is. I mean, and all of a sudden, this thing about RFU, because we let go of 60 staff people to save some money, everyone. But now we probably realize what we need money for.
Yeah, that's true. And there's also apparently their commercials have been down on what was forecast, which also led to that as well. So there are 28 contracts, and this is the first full-time contracts for 15s ladies that are ongoing. New Zealand have done 28 contracts, but they're not full-time contracts. They're part-time ones.
But still, it's still very positive, though.
It's a very positive move, but in New Zealand, what they realise is that they can't pay them enough to make it really a full-time job, so they have to accommodate and allow them to have other part-time jobs. I mean, there are various some of the ladies are firemen or fire ladies or whatever term I'm supposed to use. I'm sorry, and other school teachers and other kind of jobs. So they have to commit to between a minimum of 10 to 14 hours of training time a week on their retainers. So it's still, as you say, a massive step forward from being totally amateur. But the RFU one is the first one that's actually full-time contracts as opposed to part-time ones, which is all these steps are good steps going forwards. And we just hope that other unions can afford to do the same thing, because it would be a real shame to see the RFU just walk away and not have competition.
Yeah, I agree again. That's the problem when you have positive news. It's so hard to analyze and talk about. All right, they did the right thing, good. But I think long term, and the most important, I mean, the women's game also, they need to World Cup is slowly growing, the Women's World Cup, and that should probably be a foundation we should build it from. But they need to be be able to bring in some money by themselves, actually, to create so much buzz around their team and their competition. So it's there's enough money coming into the system so they can be professional. So it's not like they're professional basically by being subsidized by the men, because that's probably not going to work long term. No,
true. And I mean, in Australia, for example, I know that the women's and men's sevens team get paid the same. They have pay parity, which is amazing. And just so we know that these are in addition to the 17 sevens contracts that England have also given out. And if we look at the players in New Zealand who have got those 15s contract, it doesn't include players like Portia Woodman, who have sevens contracts. So these are on top of sevens contracts, which is good as well. Mm-hmm. We've also got the Farah Palmer Cup now, which has 12 out of the 14 Mitre 10 Cup provinces included. In England, you've got I've gone blank as what it's called, but basically there is now a national women's competition that runs. And we are waiting now for Scotland, Ireland, Wales, France, to South Africa to catch up, really. But it's fantastic news that we've got at least two of the biggest unions in the world are leading the way in this.
Yes, it's very, very important. I guess France will probably be the next one jumping on the train, because it's enough money in the French rugby system to finance this pretty easy.
There is the other area that you might see, another place we might see it a bit like in soccer. I think the biggest, the most professional women's soccer side is actually soccer. I believe is in the States. So we might see the USA and Canada leading on the women's side professionally. We'll have to wait and see how it all pans out. No, that's a good shout, Paul. I mean, if we're ever going to be a proper professional women's rugby league, it's most likely that's going to be in the United States from the beginning. Cool. The other one that's two other topics that have sort of popped up, which are kind of not positive topics, unfortunately, for us to cover. Let's start with red cards.
You mean there was a shocker in the? We said it was kind of a shocker in the Premiership this weekend, wasn't it?
Yeah. So Spencer from Leicester Tigers in the Premiership, in the Gallagher Premiership, caught a player with his shoulder, by leading with the shoulder, made contact with the head. Now, there are a bunch of people that said this is a shocking call, and I'm afraid to say, sorry, no, it's not. I agree with you. Even Freddie Burns, who came out on Twitter, said, look, this is not a criticism of the referee. He made the call as per World Rugby guidelines. There was force to the head, by the shoulder. There was no wrapping arms. But he didn't believe that, but there wasn't intent, and he thought it was a bad law rather than a bad call. And I think a lot of people need to take a step back and realise actually the call was right. Now, whether you agree or not with the law is a different matter, but the call was correct as per World Rugby laws.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, also, I get kind of frustrated because every time you hear this, you get these kind of comments that rugby is going soft. That's whatever, rugby is going soft. But I'm like 100% for that we should protect the head, because we can see from rugby's big rich cousin, American football, what they are going right through. And if anyone think this is not going to come to rugby eventually too, with massive lawsuits from old players that are going to start suing them because they actually put them at risk, because the knowledge is kind of already out there. What happens if you get too many concussions and you hit to the head? There's no way rugby can hide behind that in a law. And if we take it to court, they're going to lose those cases. That's as plain and simple. So they need to put the foot down now, And also, I mean, it gets kind of, people love to talk about player welfare, and yeah, we need to play less games, but that's a problem. But head injuries is 10 times bigger problem than playing too much games. It's 10 times worse. One of it's fixable. Headshots is not really if you knock someone out enough times, they're gonna become a vegetable for the rest of their life. That's just a fact.
It is, and this idea that he's tall, therefore he can't get down. Bend your knees.
Yeah, yeah.
This isn't we were seeing concussions. Don't get me wrong, we were definitely seeing concussions and head injuries pre-professional rugby. Okay, but we weren't seeing them from this style of play. We were seeing them from other styles of play, and people just not realising the impact or what was going on, and therefore trying to play through them, which was very bad. What we've seen here is basically rugby league defensive systems being brought into rugby union to win the contact, so the guy goes, so you knock the guy backwards rather than him falling over you as he falls to the ground, and 2, to wrap the ball in so that they can't get an offload. And so people who are saying, oh, this isn't rugby, well, actually, yes, what you're seeing now isn't rugby from 10 years ago, because players tackled much lower then, because that's how they were trained. It's a coaching issue. It's a training issue. It's not. This isn't about talking about is this rugby or not. Rugby has changed from 10, 15 years ago, and what we're trying to do is take it back there in some ways by bringing the tackle heights back down again to where they used to be. And people who are saying that we're killing the game is not true.
No. If anything is killing the game, that will be if you continue to allow big hits to the head. That will actually kill the game for real eventually. I mean, rugby can actually be forbidden as a sport in countries if it continues like this. That's it.
Absolutely. I mean, there'll be a number of people who say, "Oh, what's the acceptable level of risk?" Now, for me, yes, there will always be concussions in rugby. It's a contact sport; they will happen. But for me, you can bring down the level of tackling, and you won't reduce the game as a spectacle. I still think that the game will still be fantastic to watch and enjoyable to watch. Will it change it slightly? Yes, it will. Any change will change the tactics, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. The game is constantly changing. It's not what it used to be. It's not when George Wellis. I've gone blank. It's the guy's real name. Anyway, the guy who invented rugby back in rugby school. If you were to watch a game by the original rules, original laws. You would see actually you would not recognise it as rugby. To start off with, it was as many people as turned up on the day to play. Having read the original codex, it doesn't. Yeah, the game does not bear any relation to what original rugby was. So this idea that we're killing rugby or it's not the game I knew is people just with poor memories.
Yes, I agree. And I think probably a positive side effect, if they really can enforce the tackler have to go down lower, we're going to see a lot more offloading. For sure. I mean, that's one of the big reasons why we go high now, because we want to lock up the arms so you can't pass or offload the ball.
Yep, you're going to speed up the game,
Yeah,
which will make the players more tired, which will mean that they then will then have
they will eventually get smaller.
And they will eventually get smaller. Kind of stuff,
yeah. They will actually get smaller because so it's all good.
It's all good.
Yeah, but it's important what you do, because I think not just you and my pretty much anyone who like putting up their opinion like in the public about this needs to be very clear about it, just so we don't go like, taking a little bit too easy. That was not so bad. That was not. Come on, that was an accident. Blah blah blah. No. Be ruthless when enforcing this law. Like, it's yellow or red cards straight away, and it should be no discussion. And the only one is to blame is the player being stupid enough for tackling that high. That's where the only blame should go, not to the ref, not to the ref, not to the laws.
And I'm not trying to suggest here that Spencer was trying to brain and knock the guy out. Okay, don't get that's not. I'm not suggesting that's what he was trying to do, but I do believe he was going too high, and it was poor technique. He was in the wrong position, and therefore he gets punished for that. I'm not trying to say that there's intent here for him to seriously hurt the other player. Don't get me wrong. That's not what I'm trying to say. But I am trying to say that he got it. He was He was in the wrong position, at the wrong height. So therefore, he needs to be duly punished by the letter of the law.
Yep, I agree.
Now, other people who should be duly punished are Australian fans who start swearing. So fan involvement is next. Now, let's be honest. On here, we talk about rugby. We give opinions. We talk and we state whether we think players are playing well or badly. To be honest, but those opinions are, well, we try and keep them positive on this show, on this channel, and they're never. It's not about personally attacking. It's not about swearing at players. And what happened in Australia with the fan and Tui is totally wrong, and the guy should be. The guy should have a long ban, if not life ban, for this.
Yeah, I don't really know what to say about that. It's like again, I mean, this is the code of rugby, and this is one of the reasons why I've been attracted to rugby, being a soccer man myself from the beginning. Obviously, being a soccer man, this is absolutely nothing in the soccer world. This is the reality of soccer. That's part of the game, that you insult the player, especially if you're close to the field. But I don't really like it, and it's one of the things I really love about rugby. So I think it's very important that rugby put the foot down really, really hard on this. Like, this is non-acceptable in rugby. We don't want this.
Absolutely, and not with. And there were kids around. Now, well done to I think it was Maddox who was initially there and was getting abused, and he.
Tui.
No. Initially, it was Maddox and he ignored.
I was Maddox. Okay.
And he ignored the whole guy. The guy then moved on to somebody else and Tui, and unfortunately, Tui had family members there who apparently were obviously upset by this, potentially from maybe even physically interfered with, and Tui's clearly was emotionally in a very fragile state with his stepfather having passed away, which was really, and so he reacted. Whereas the other players who weren't in the same fragile state obviously just ignored the guy. Now, where were the stewards? The fact that he's got through several minutes of abusing some players already before he even gets to Tui means this guy should have been ejected and should have been told to pipe down. And even if he believes and wants to put across to the guys that they haven't played well, swearing at them is not the best way to do it, especially with kids around getting signatures. The stewards needed to get involved much earlier. I feel sorry for Tui, and if he needs the time off, please take the time off. We want to see you playing many more years on the pitch, personally.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, but it's, I think we could probably look at, I mean, in no way making an excuse for this guy's horrible behavior in the stand, but this is probably born out also partly about there is a lot of things that's wrong in Australian rugby right now, and there are a lot of frustrated fans now, because pretty much it seems like every other team in the world right now is improving ahead of the World Cup, but they are going the complete opposite direction. And it can't be fun to see. It can't be fun to see your team playing like that week after week.
It can't be. And the only positives come out of this is that shows that somebody cares how the Wallabies are playing, which is good. That we want to see. We want to see fans caring, but we also want to see fans being respectful to people who are trying to do their jobs. As in the players. Yeah. And for those of you who are watching amateur rugby at weekends, those not doing their jobs and also playing, and especially referees, don't abuse referees at club games. Folks, without referees, there's no games. If you keep abusing them, there'll be no referees.
Mm-hmm.
Now, talking about family of players and abuse, did you spot Julian Severe's wife's tweets over the weekend?
No, I'm not on Twitter, so what did she say?
So, now, to be fair, she has form. Okay.
All right.
This isn't the first time that she's taken to Twitter and defended. And for those of you listening on the podcast rather than watching, there's air quotes there, defending Julian Severe. But this weekend, she let off a few tweets. Now, Toulon obviously are not playing well. They lost at the weekend. Julian Severe got himself in an altercation with an opposition player, and I can't remember who they were playing this weekend, but they lost. And the player's brother decided to jump on the field, and or at least or some family member.
Oh yeah. I read something about, but please continue.
Jumped on the field and thankfully didn't really get involved. I mean, there were a few verbals, but nothing physical. Thankfully, and he got guided off the pitch. So Julian's wife decided to go to Twitter and say basically how the rest of his team was basically playing awful, and how it was so sad to see Julian's sad face at the level of play that he was having to put up with, which I found kind of amusing. And there was another tweet about the level of play in France and how it was appalling he would have to put up with this kind of how it was so much behind New Zealand play. She also
some Kiwi arrogance,
which she's done before, I think. And I can't remember what the fourth tweet was now, but she decided to let loose on Twitter.
Well, can we blame her? Top 14, it is a lot of boring games in top 14. There's no denying that.
Sure, but your lifestyle is being paid by this boring game that you are having a go at. True. Okay, number one.
Don't bite the hand that feeds you.
If you want endorsement deals for your husband going forwards, perhaps the best way of enabling those is not slagging off people on Twitter. Which again is one of the things that that I always think about. I've obviously not talked to a player about this, but it's kind of why are players on Twitter or in social media, or in public social media, rather private social media like WhatsApp, etc. They're on things like WhatsApp, etc. because, hey, they want the banter amongst their teammates in an environment that isn't shared with everybody else. And that's fine. When it's on Twitter, when it's on Instagram, potentially Facebook, depending on how they do their Facebook, then it's in the public domain and it is public, which means that generally they're doing it to further their public image because that furthers the endorsement deals they can get. And hence...
Oh, you're getting it all wrong, Paul. They want a direct line to talk with their fans. That's what we're always saying.
Right, okay.
I was ironic.
It's maybe there is an element of that as well. And if so, then, and if that's purely what they're doing and they don't want the endorsement deals, fine. Say what you like, don't get the endorsement deals. But at the end of the day, I get a funny feeling Julian will want some, and most players, this is not a go just at Julian, don't get me wrong. Yeah. This is a comment of how family members should realise that the job that their family, that their partner or their son, daughter, etc. is a public one. The way they get paid is because the public want to watch what they do, and because the public and because brands want to be associated with that public image, and which generally wants to be a wholesome, positive image, not a negative one. And if you want it to maintain being a positive, wholesome image, you don't go around making those kind of comments on Twitter, pretty much on behalf of your husband or on behalf of the team surveyor, which is what it is basically.
Yeah. No, you're right. You're right.
Should the brother or relative of the opposition player have jumped on the pitch? No. They need to stand the standards. Don't get me wrong. And thankfully, they didn't get too involved. And Julian and the opposition player both got yellow carded, which obviously his wife didn't necessarily fully approve of. But there you go. These things happen.
Yeah. But if you're a fan and you're going to jump on the field, there are better sports than rugby to go jump in and start a fight with, with the players. The odds are going to be heavily stacked against them. It was like some old clip from a game in South Africa between Springboks and All Blacks when a pretty drunk Springbok fan jumps in on the field and jumps on the referee. And I think it's within 2 seconds there are 3 players manhandling him pretty bad, it's. You should have thought about that.
But by being a family member, probably was known by most of the players on one side of one of the teams, and he was a fairly large fellow himself. So, but anyway, thankfully it didn't get out of hand. However, I did see another clip where there was a nude streaker who was taken out who was streaking on the pitch, who was tackled by a guy dressed in a Superman costume, who presumably was another fan who jumped off to tackle him to take him down so that the security could get him. But that was another clip I saw this weekend.
Coming to think of it, it was just 6-7 years ago, I think. Probably the most funny one I seen when a family member jumped onto the field to play was when Wales beat France in the Six Nations and secured the title. They scored a try in the last minute, George North. And there is one fan jumping on, hugging George North, but we get to realize afterward it was his father who jumped on the field. You can find it. Look at George's father's picture mate. Everyone can find that on YouTube. And it's so fun to see reaction on George North's face because it's a fan you don't want to push him away too much, but it's not really hug him. When I realized it's his dad,
And I remember a cricketing one where one of the Australian cricketers was an all-rounder, a well-built fella. And this streaker comes, or this pitch invader comes on and runs past the wicket, and he just drops the shoulder and smacks him down and knocks him over on the ground. That's probably about another 10 years ago now. Showing my age. So yes, it does kind of happen. Those were the hot topics that jumped off the page to me this weekend. Anything else on?
I want to give a little shout out to, this is probably stating the obvious, but giving a little bit more flesh to it. First, this story pretty much starts back in 2012. You remember that when Sir Graham Henry, he was hired by the Argentinian Union to help him with 2 years with the Pumas. The urban legend, the story goes that on the first meeting, basically, so what should we improve with, Sir Henry? What should we improve on? And he has basically said, you got to learn how to score tries. And looking back at it now, it seems like they actually listen because Argentina has some exciting wingers and fullbacks these days. Those 3 that are playing now with Delgui, Moroni, and Boffelli are awesome. But let's also remember we have Tukulet, who's injured now. And then in Europe, we have Imhoff and Cordero too. So they have serious quality and depth in their back 3 now. I would say it's only All Blacks that even can compete with that kind of quality. And who would have thought that about Pumas a couple of years ago?
But where's their scrum gone?
Yeah, that's... But I heard there's a very technical reason for this, because they are refereeing the scrum like in the amateur league in Argentina very, very different these days. I mean, they have been taking away, to my understanding, they've been taking away a little bit of like when we actually like hit each other in the beginning, we're going in much softer way. So it's been if I generalize, it's the scrums in Argentinian amateur rugby these days a little bit soft. So that's why they don't produce any like really good props anymore. And the only really good props they have are the ones who've been in Europe for 5, 6, 10 years to play front row and be a good prop.
So maybe they've removed the hit and made it a real pushing contest, which is what it used to be if we go back 15 years. So again, it's returning rugby to its roots. Maybe.
Yeah. But I think they're well worth a shout out to the Argentinian backs, because they are playing exciting rugby, really exciting. I mean, looking at this, has England again managed a group of death? I mean, if France actually keep improving, and this Argentinian team, I can easily see if they have a good day and get the right European players into that mix, they can beat England.
Well, I mean, all we've got to do is look at the difference Mario Ledesma has made between the junior internationals and now is night and day. Clearly, there were issues with the previous coaching setup because there's I don't know what it was. I'm not as they live the other side of the world. They speak a different language. I don't have as much awareness around the Pumas as I do some of the other sides, but you just got to look at the results they had against Wales and Scotland, and then look at them now against South Africa, the All Blacks and the Springboks in their last 3 games. Sure, they lost in South Africa, but the 3 games since then, they've won 2 out of 3, wow.
And playing good rugby.
Having lost to Wales twice, lost to Scotland, and that wasn't first choice Scotland or Wales teams either. I mean, they had players left at home. So yeah, no, they're going to be a serious. Assuming Mario Ledesma sticks around and doesn't get sacked, they are a serious. They're definitely a serious team come Japan.
Yes, it is. They are. I mean, we should do that pretty soon. I think maybe like within the next month, we should do like a first like little preview of the World Cup, just going through the groups and when the games are played, and just to start seeing like a possible predictions here, because there are some interesting way that's helped. Some teams have actually similar schedules than others. There are setups there that could be interesting in some groups.
Yep. Now, perhaps post the Rugby World Championship. So post the Rugby
Championship. Yeah. There's like a
November
3-week window
take a look at that in that sort of the gap.
Yeah.
Be a good topic to have a chat about.
It's a very fun subject.
Thank you very much, sir. I think we're coming to the end of the show. Please do remember to comment, like, and subscribe, or subscribe, comment, whatever the order is you're supposed to say on Twitter. Massive apologies to Ashwin, because yes, I was 45 minutes late. Big apologies to Herman as well. Sorry, thank you very much for staying on, sir. Your lunch hour has now been 2 hours. You may now go to the pub.
I actually just finished my lunch when Ashwin and I started talking with each other. So I'm good. That's why I could hang around. If I hadn't eaten my lunch, this would not have happened, for sure. But the rest of you viewers know, Ashwin and me spoke a lot about Auckland rugby, and I don't think everyone want to listen about that.
Well, the reason I was late was that I was actually talking rugby down the pub, and yes, we ran through the issues with Auckland rugby and why there is there. I ran through my theory as to why New Zealand rugby is so good, and we talked about a few other. And also, he did say that really I needed to wear a black jersey, and that wearing a white jersey was hindering my viewer numbers. And that if I wore a black jersey more frequently, then I'd get more viewers. I'm not sure that's entirely true, but hey, who knows? I mean, after a few beers, it made a little bit of sense. Maybe. So, thank you everybody for watching. And sorry we were running. Oh, sorry, I was running late. And catch you all tomorrow night for the All Blacks edition.